and welcome to the 1983 Sea Galley Emerald Cup hydroplane races on Lake Washington. I'm Tony Ventrella. We have got a large crew of individuals out here today to bring you live coverage all across the state of Washington. And leading that coverage at the start-finish line, Don Poyer. Don?
Thank you, Tony. I'll be at the start-finish line as usual. Won't be as lonely this year because we've got Mr. John Walters, former driver of the Pay-In Pack, who is with us as an expert commentator. Good to have you with us, John.
Thanks, Don. I think it's really going to be fun. I've been looking forward to this. It's going to be the first time in as long as I can remember that I'm going to get a chance to see a boat race.
With the retirement of Rod Belcher at Pitt Central, that means the senior member of the crew now at Pitt Central will be Mike Fitzsimmons. Michael.
Thank you very much, Don. I'm even carrying my gold card today. And with us, in place of Rod Belcher, whom we miss, is Steve Reynolds.
Yes, indeed, we miss Rod Belcher, but he left me his script and told me exactly how he wants me to run things here, so we're going to have a good time today. Tony?
And while you're up there having a good time, we will be down here having an equally good time on the pits. Lou Gallo.
I think we have everything covered. We've got the start-finish line, we've got the organizers here at Pitt Central, and Tony and I will be down in the pits to see the mechanics, the drivers, and all that other activity that goes on down here.
All right, we will all be right back in just a minute as we start live coverage of the 1983 Sea Galley Emerald Cup hydroplane races on Lake Washington.
We're getting set to go in just less than a half an hour. Let's run them down. Mitch Evans and his boat, the Island Security from Chelan, Washington. Allison-powered cab over at Don Suey Creation, the only one in the race, has tried to qualify for 4 years on Lake Washington. Finally, Mitch and the bright yellow boat got in on Friday afternoon. Mitch is the son of Norm Evans. Terry Turner is back from Pomona, California in the Team 5 U5 Mr. Otto. This boat is light and loose. It is Otto-powered, twin Chevys, and this boat is fast. However, it has not been consistent. They would like to prove that Otto engines can be the future in unlimited hydroplane racing. Terry Turner working now for 4 years on that concept. Fred Leland, the owner and the driver of the KISW Miss Rock. His qualifying speed a little over 108. The boat is capable of better. She is Rolls powered, not high budget, but quick. And Fred Leland is looking to be the spoiler in the slow flight. Brenda Jones is back on Lake Washington for the first time since last year. She is behind the wheel of an unlimited hydroplane. The boat was sold last year, went back east to Georgia, came back to Tacoma this year, and the first boat to hail out of Tacoma since 1958's Coral Reef. Brenda Jones, the first woman driver in unlimited racing since the Second World War. Milner Irvin is back after a one-year hiatus. Irvin drives the boat U3, Miss Renault. Jerry Shaineth, the younger brother of bad guy Lee Shaineth. The Shaineth family back in unlimited racing. The boat now based in Tri-Cities is a Turbo Allison-powered boat. Here's George Johnson. He drove his Executone last year in a three-boat accident right to the bottom of Lake Washington, but the boat is back with horizontal stabilizer, new cowling design, and Dan High twist in the screws on that engine. The boat, a Rolls-powered boat, is heavy, giving away a few pounds to the rest of the competition. Look for her, however, to be in there come the final heat. Scotty Pierce, very popular in the Seattle area, is back aboard the Ark. Yes, it's the Ark. 5 years in the making in the Bellevue backyard of Chuck Hickling, one of the greats in racing, elected to the Unlimited Hall of Fame this year. Scotty Pierce is a fine driver. Look for him to be strong. And here's Ron Snyder from Piqua, Ohio, driving this boat, the former Pay-In Pack. U6 Frank Kenny Toyota, the Seattle Art Museum co-sponsoring this year. This craft is fast. In fact, with the Turbo Allison, she's running faster than she was when she was the magnificent Pay-In Pack. Here's what I consider the best of the rookies this year, Earl Hall. His boat, a little heavier. The Rolls-powered Squire Shop, giving away some pounds, but the boat is fast. Lake Washington's been good to the Squire Shop. She has been a winner, and she is still capable of winning again. Jack Schaefer, after 8 years of trying, he finally scored a magnificent victory on the Columbia River last week. He drives the Speedy Printing U7, a new team out of Houston. This boat due for replacement next year, but Jack Schaefer is the spoiler in the fast flight. This boat is capable of going with the Bud and the Atlas into any turn. Jim Cropfeld drives the Miss Budweiser. He's considered the boat to beat. The boat due for replacement in 1984, but the Rolls Griffin-powered Miss Budweiser has been an extremely competitive hull since Ron Jones turned it loose in 1980, formerly driven by Dean Chenoweth. And here's the guy who'd like to knock off the Budweiser here. He's Chip Anauer. In the recessed cockpit of the Atlas van lines, he saw 134.3 in qualifying on Lake Washington. Fastest qualifier of all the Atlas van lines, extremely popular here in the Seattle area, and Chip as well. The alternate, it's Will Muncie, son of the late Bill Muncie, the legend. Will driving the Kawaguchi Travel U43. His qualifying time of 97 miles an hour places him as an alternate only. The Kawaguchi is an older design. It isn't really capable of doing much against some of these newer boats, but it's great to see the name Muncie still in unlimited racing.
Thank you, Mike Fitzsimmons. This race, the 1983 Sea Galley Emerald Cup, is the 8th stop on the hydroplane circuit for this year. The next race is in San Diego 5 weeks from now. But to get you up to date on how things have gone so far, we go back 2 months and halfway across the country. Missouri, the opening of the 1983 Unlimited season, and the beginning of what could develop into a series of heated duels between the sport's 2 fastest boats, the Budweiser and the defending national champion Atlas Van Lines. But at the first Missouri Governor's Cup, it's an unheralded boat with an identity problem that outlasts the favorites. The Miss Rich Plan Food Service, better known on the Western Circuit as the Frank Kenny Toyota, survives the winner-take-all final heat, while the Bud and the Atlas failed to finish. June 5th, Miami, Florida, the $85,000 Champion Spark Plug Regatta. After disappointing mechanical problems in Missouri, the Atlas and 3-time defending champion Budweiser ready for their first head-to-head competition. But once again, the Atlas runs into trouble. A gas explosion rips a hole in the side of the boat during the qualifying run. A quick patch job keeps the boat in the race, but it's not enough to keep the Budweiser and driver Jim Kropfeld from capturing his first ever victory.
I've been down here many times with the smaller boats, so I was very familiar with the wind currents and some of the waves and the whatever problems are on the race course. But in an Unlimited, this is my first race, and really I didn't feel too confident until the final heat when I used the other heats to practice and learn the course. And the final heat, I really felt confident. I think the Budweiser just put together a better day than we did. They did a phenomenal job, and Jim Kropfeld did a great job, and we just got beat.
Despite the hole in his boat, Chip Hanauer drives the Atlas to second place. The Squire shop with rookie driver Earl Hall is third. Syracuse, New York, the Atlas Cup. The Atlas is red hot in qualifying runs again, setting a course record of over 132 miles per hour, but still can't catch the Budweiser when it counts. Bud driver Jim Kropfeld spots the Atlas an early lead, but passes the Atlas on the second lap and roars to an easy win. The Atlas is second, and for the second race in a row, the Squire shop is a consistent third. June 25th, the Spirit of Detroit Thunderfest. The Budweiser shoots for its third straight win, but it's the Atlas that puts it together to win its first race of the season. Over 750,000 people watch as the Bud hits the starting line first, only to jump the gun and a few laps later break down. Hanauer, on a rough, windy day, survives a collision with the Miss Rich Plan Food Service to earn the Atlas its first victory since the final race of 1982. Madison, Indiana, the Indiana Governor's Cup. High winds keep the boats on their trailers and force a 4-hour postponement. But Jim Kropfeld and the Budweiser aren't slowed a bit, winning all 3 heats, including the winner-take-all final.
It was a lot of fun out there. Chip and I had a very good race, the final heat. We didn't have much of a race the heat before that. The water was so rough, but it laid down very good. And the only really bad rough part was in the first turn, but we all came through good. And I think it was one of the prettiest, nicest races I've been in so far.
The Atlas, despite once again having the fastest qualifying time, finishes a distant second. The Rich Plan Food Service is third. Evansville, Indiana. Once again, bad luck hits the Atlas. Just 24 hours before the race, a propeller rips off the rudder and badly damages the boat. And on race day, a rooster tail crashes into the Atlas, smashing the windshield and caving in Hanauer's face mask. But despite all this, the Atlas camp finally finds a little luck. After opening up a big lead, the Budweiser loses power and goes dead, leaving the Atlas to its second win of the season. After the race, Hanauer, suffering from heat exhaustion, is unable to pull himself from the cockpit and receives medical aid. The U7 American Speedy Printing 2 finishes second, while the Squire shop is third. 1 week ago, the Columbia Cup, Tri-Cities, Washington. In the first heat, Chip Hanauer appears to get the Atlas off to a perfect start, grabbing the inside lane. But Jim Kropfeld demonstrates the superior power delivered by the Budweiser Rolls-Royce Griffin engine and blows by the Atlas to win the first heat easily. But in the winner-take-all final heat, it's a different story. Heading into the critical first turn, Jack Schaefer's American Speedy Printing gets a great start and grabs the inside lane, putting the Atlas on his hip to the outside. Suddenly, the Bud makes a move, cuts inside, and is forced into the infield after getting washed down by Schaefer's Rooster Tail. Incredibly, the Budweiser misses a buoy and has to circle back around. It looks like a 2-boat race now, the Atlas and the surprising American Speedy Printing. But the Atlas suddenly loses power and goes dead in the water, leaving Jack Schaefer all alone in the lead. But Jim Kropfeld in the Budweiser, his helmet visor smashed and his face cut and bruised, gives chase, cutting a 30-second deficit to just 11 seconds. The victory, however, his first ever, goes to Jack Schaefer and the American Speedy Printing.
He's out there, isn't it? It's not exactly calm. The wind came up, I guess, over the evening or overnight, and there's quite a bit of swells, and it's very rough.
One question about the 2.5-mile course, the 1-mile straightaways, Jim. It would seem to me that might be to your advantage and to your boat's advantage. True?
Well, I don't look at it that way, to tell you the truth, because we try to save equipment, we try to float over the top of all that rough stuff, and I won't be able to go any faster than anyone else on the straightaways. I figure my advantage against the Atlas and the Speedy and a couple other ones is going to be in the turns and the acceleration, because we have a much larger engine than they have.
Jim, best of luck to you today in your first Emerald Cup race here.
Appreciate it very much.
Okay, we will go now to Lou Gellos, who is over with Chip Hanauer and the Atlas Van Lines.
Tony, Chip perhaps agrees with Jim Kropfeld that the choppy water conditions are not an advantage to anybody. At least nobody thinks of it that way, but I think you have to agree that since the Budweiser is a heavier boat, that certainly puts you in a position to have to chase the Bud.
It does. The Budweiser has 1,000 more horsepower, and along with that horsepower, they've got about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds more weight. And in a situation like this with the wind and the rough water, it could be a little bit of an advantage, but more than that, we're just worried about it being safe. That's the important thing.
Okay, now the Atlas Van Lines went out this morning and right away turned out to be the first boat to have problems today. And so let's bring people up to date on that. You went out on the practice run this morning and you went dead in the water. What happened?
Well, Lou, we had a gear problem that we talked about in Tri-Cities last week. And unfortunately, I don't think we've got that gear situation fixed. And this is the gears that drive the supercharger. So we're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed and hope that they hang with us all day.
Okay, and if the gear problems aren't enough, you've had to make a sponson change. We'll kind of move down to the end of the boat here and tell us what exactly happened here and what did you do?
Well, really what happened was that with this rough water, the sponson was taking a beating from the water here, and it knocked out some fiberglass that we had put in there to make a temporary fix. It's nothing structural and should be no problem.
Okay, Chip Hanauer and the Atlas, they've made some changes on the boat. They're trying to get this engine ready for when their heat comes up. Mike and Steve, back to you at Pit Central.
Well, again this year, we hope to give you the finest hydroplane race coverage anywhere. And to do it, we've set up cameras and people all over the lake. 2.5 miles, but the configuration is narrower with tighter turns. This is to slow the drivers down going into the corners, making for a safer race. We use 10 cameras to cover all the action. Camera 1 is on the official tower. It's the shot that gives us the best perspective at the start of the race. Camera 2 is located on a high house on a hill above the lake. This gives us a fairly wide perspective of the course. This year's new electronic technology has allowed us to use smaller cameras with bigger lenses to cover the action. Camera 3 is at the end of the front straightaway. This is the shot that shows the boat slamming into the south turn. Camera 4 is in the north turn and gives us some spectacular shots as the boats navigate the turn and head for the finish line. Camera 5 is 600 feet up in Sky King and gives us an overall look at the course. In the pits, we've erected a 50-foot tower for Camera 6, and Camera 7 is on a hydraulic giraffe that can telescope up to 90 feet in the air. We use 2 handheld cameras, 8 and 9, to rove through the pits for driver interviews and wherever the story is. Camera 10 is located in the Squire shop. It promises to give us the most unique angle of the race from driver Earl Hall's perspective. That's 10 cameras, 140 people to cover this year's race.